So welcome to this plenary. It's a great opportunity to have you here to listen to our panelists about the Practicum Local to Global program that unites the U.S. section with international and with the UN and with the UNO office, United Nations Office of International Will in New York City. So I'd like to, we're all going to self-introduce. So I'd like to pass the mic first to Melissa Torres. And we will probably go a bit past 9:30 because we have eight-minute presentations planned. Maybe we can cut them back just a little bit, but we really want you to know about this program and how important it is to WILF, how important it is to women and WILF at the UN.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Melissa Maldonado Torres. I'm the WILF U.S. International Board Representative and also served as the delegate to the Americas for the Congress that we had there a couple of years ago. Before we start, I'm also a co-faculty of the UN programs, formerly known as the Practicum and Local to Global. We'll be talking about how we've combined the two. I share that role with Dixie, and so we wanted to actually share, just really briefly before we discussed our roles, how we got involved, because I think it speaks a lot to the programs and the role that it plays for WILF US. So the United Nations Practicum, we'll talk a little bit about the history later. I started as a Practicum participant in 2011. I had actually never heard of WILF before. One of my professors, when I was working on my master's, had actually, she was a professor when I was working my master's. When I was working my PhD, she contacted me because she remembered me from one of the classes talking about my interest in international social work. And she said she had received information from a listserv about this program. So she recommended me because we needed a faculty sponsor, and that's how I got involved. After that week, I didn't have an active local branch. And so the UN Practicum faculty at the time was also WILF US President Laura Roscos. And so I just reached out to her because I didn't know what else to do and how else to get involved. And then she just started inviting me to calls and inviting me to get involved in other programs. During my time as a participant, I was actually offered a job with an organization at the UN, so I returned the following year to the Commission on the Status of Women in the United Nations, which is when our program takes place. And then Laura invited me back to speak to the students, and then every year I just kept getting invited back until I became faculty and started leading the program. I'm not the only one that has that story about getting involved in WILF through the Practicum. We've actually had a lot of board members who've come in through this program, so it's something that I hold very dearly, something that I'm really passionate about. I care about that shared leadership perspective of it. That's something that we want to talk about today. So as international board rep, just to let you know, that's not why I have this role in the Practicum and the programs. Now you know the history behind that. But one of the things that came out of my work in WILF was then being appointed IB rep. And mostly because I had already started working with international sections when Laura appointed me as a delegate to the Americas. At one of the last international congresses, the sections in the Americas and in Latin America were upset that there wasn't anything in Spanish. Everything that we do is in English. It is a complaint that we've heard often when it comes to language justice. So they held their own Congress in the Americas for only the Americas sections, and everyone who attended had to speak Spanish and work on these issues. So I was working with them when I was appointed, and so then that's how I started getting involved with international and working with them because the former director who just left WILF International about a month ago, she was from Spain and came to our Congress to help us out in relaying information back to international in Spanish. So then I started working with her out of our office in Geneva, and then also with the Latin American sections. So I started seeing how WILF worked at an international level, specifically in the Americas. And then I was appointed IB rep. So the work that we do there is actually, I'm basically, I'm sorry, I don't know the word in English. I'm basically the connection between international liaison. Thank you. I was thinking about it. So I'm the liaison between Wolf International and Wolf US. If International has any information that has to go out, and by the way, I'll be sending an email today. If Wolf International has any information that has to go out to the sections, they send it to me and I disperse it to the organization. Same thing, Wolf US needs to contact someone at Wolf International, I get them in touch. I help on certain issues, on certain committees with Wolf International. So for those that aren't familiar with our international work, we have our main office in Geneva, just not even a mile away from the UN headquarters. And we're constantly there working on the issues. We also have program directors there. We have the Human Rights Program, we have the MENA program, and then we have an office at the UN headquarters in New York. And that's where we have our Peace Women and Reaching Critical Will programs in the office, and also our international interns. So Wolf has consultative status with the United Nations. We're one of many, but not too many, NGOs that have, or organizations that have consultative status with the UN. That means that whatever issues the UN is working with, where NGOs are invited to the table, mostly with the Economic Social Council, we have a right to be there, and we have a seat at the table to work on those issues. So that's what's happening full-time at our offices in Geneva and New York. They're working on the programs that mostly have to do with disarmament, militarization, any peace talks, and Security Council 1325, which is women, peace, and security. So those are the issues that we focus on at the international level. Every year, the United Nations has about 6 or 7 meetings that happen annually, and one of them is the Commission on the Status of Women. They focus on certain issues, and the CSW focuses on women's issues at the Economic Social Council level. So NGOs who have that consultative status get delegations to go and represent them and work on the issues, help out with the final papers and resolutions, and report back to their organizations. So we have accessibility to the CSW, and that's when we take a delegation every year. And we've opened that up to our UN programs, which consist of the practicum, which is where we outreach to students to help get them involved in WILF, learn what a delegation is, and bring them to that process. And then local to global, which are longtime WILFers who want to get involved at that level and have that experience. So these were formerly 2 separate programs. We've recently seen that generational gap, and then the lack of mentorship that we really want with our new students, new participants. So over the last couple of years, we've been working on joining the 2 and having the local to global longtime WILFers and the brand new WILF members, students, join as one as a delegation to represent WILF and work on our issues. So then I'll pass it over to Dixie. So here we have 2 participants from this year's WILF that will talk about their experience. And then we also have 2 of our members of our practicum committee who have been helping us with the merging of the local to global program. And Dixie has co-faculty, so I'll hand it over.
Thanks, Dr. Torres. So my name is Dixie Kirsten. I was also a practicum participant in 2014. And that's how I was introduced to WILF as well. So just another way that people come to WILF through the practicum and local to global. So like I said, I was a participant. I was in grad school and graduated that year and came back as the program coordinator for the UN programs the next year with WILF. And in my role there, I basically served as the program intern, doing all of the logistics for the week, making sure that travel arrangements are made for the delegation, any support that faculty may need for the program. And then from there, the next year became co-faculty with Dr. Torres. So now I serve basically 2 roles. During the week, I serve as co-faculty, and throughout the year, both Dr. Torres and I do the logistical support for that. So a brief explanation about the week, what it looks like, what the 2 programs our goal behind them and how we're trying to merge them. And I'll be talking about this in one of the breakout sessions right after this, so more specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer there, but I just want to give you a brief overview. So we spend most of the year preparing for either coming off of the last delegation and doing wrap up with that, and then we immediately switch to preparation for the next year. So we are currently preparing for the 2018 delegation. From the UN, we get 20 passes to CSW, and we try to fill those every year. The number of students that we're able to take with us does go up and down each year. But basically, we take between 10 and 15 students from across the United States with us to the UN. We try to, the purpose behind it is to open up access that we have the privilege of having at WILF to the UN. It's not something that even every NGO has. So we wanted to open that up to students, to young people across the United States. We fly into New York City, so CSW is actually 2 weeks plus or minus a few days. But we always go for the first week, which is when the primary events and meetings and most of the NGOs are there during that week. So we fly in on Saturday. We always have a big WILF orientation for the students and also for local to global who may not be familiar with our national and international programs at WILF. So we bring in individuals from Peace Women, from Reaching Critical Will. If there are any representatives from the Geneva office, we try to bring them in and have them meet with the students as well. So that's Saturday, and then Sunday, we all go to a big NGO-wide orientation for the week. And that's put on by NGO CSW New York. And so they're their own NGO, but basically what they do is help organizations work within the structure of the UN. So it's letting there's like 5,000 to 8,000 people that register for the CSW coming from NGOs every year. So we come to that orientation all together as members of civil society and representatives of NGOs to figure out how we work within that structure and what the processes are for that week and the week after. And then Monday through Friday, we are at different levels of meetings all day long, and I'll talk about what those different meetings look like, what we do in the next meeting. But basically, as part of the delegation, what we are wanting to do is twofold. We want to make sure that WILF's message, particularly WILF US's message, is being heard in these meetings. We want our point of view, the issues that we work on, to be there, to be that voice in the room. But we also understand that as a delegation, it's our responsibility to bring that information back to WILF US membership. So with that, we do kind of like message training on that Saturday. So for someone like me and Dr. Torres that are coming in not knowing anything about WILF, how do you talk about WILF? How do you bring a message across and convey that in a room of other advocates and activists? And also we have training on, okay, now how do you take notes? How do you report to an organization what you're hearing? So we do those two things throughout the week. We have morning briefing sessions where we talk about, and Nancy's laughing because they're very early in the morning. So we do skills training in the morning. So how do you go in and talk to your UN representative? What can you do to meet with your official country delegation? And those types of things. And sometimes we do have students that have a nationality or even residency that is not American, so they want to go in and talk to their home country's delegations or go spend time with NGOs that are working in their countries. So we try to facilitate that as well throughout the week. And we also have evening debriefings, which go very late into the night, talking about what the students are seeing, what is going on during these meetings, what messages are coming across, what agendas they see the different NGOs and country representatives bring to them. So that's kind of the overview of the week. What we really try to do in those evening debriefings is bring the group together to discuss with each other, to build relationships, to facilitate relationships between Dr. Torres and I, to help. The long-term goal is to bring those students into WILF as engaged members of this organization, which is, constantly a work in progress, I feel like. But, I mean, that's the purpose, one of the main purposes of the program. What we also want to do is bring diversity and inclusion to this program, and this is something that has been one of our main priorities, is how can we get, so we have this access, how can we make the most of it? So that's why we started to include men, which Andrew is one of our very fine students. We worked with someone at the University of Houston who helped us create inclusive language, non-gender specific language, to make sure that even in our messaging and our flyers and our emails, that we are making it clear that we welcome all people, all university students, all college students to this program, and that we are being as inclusive as we possibly can be. So everything from making sure that the hotel has a disabled, a way that we can get maybe someone that's in a wheelchair into the hotel, all the way to, like I said, how are we talking, how are we speaking, what words are we using, which I think is something, like I said, that has been one of our priorities. So finally, so that's the week, that's our purpose behind it, and I'll wrap up just talking about the application process. So for both Local to Global and Practicum, we opened the application in September. And just to be clear, so Practicum is for university, college, community college, technical college students, and Local to Global are for WILF members. So that's how we define that. Both applications open in September. The process, applications are open all the way through the end of October. We have a selection committee, which Barbara will talk about a little bit more. Ideally, we notify participants by December and give students the chance. So another difference is the way that the programs are funded, which I'll talk about in the next session a little bit more, because that gets a little into the weeds. But we are able to spend January and February preparing the delegation to come to New York. So that's kind of what it looks like. And then we do wrap up afterwards. We do a survey. We call individual students to figure out, okay, now you've been here, you know what WILF does, how can we continue to involve you in this process? So I'll turn it over to Barbara now, who will talk about specifically the Local to Global program and her experience.